Welcome to the Soul Warrior Network. This month's topic is growing into personalizing our soul self, enhancing our miracle consciousness. This week's topic is ancestral and religious trauma. Jeffrey will facilitate our ability to increase our capacity to overcome ancestral and our own religious trauma. So without further delay, thank you, Jeff.
Do you really think and believe that millions of evolved souls would say yes to come to Earth just to die in a totalitarian new world order? Absolutely not. We came to flip this world upside down, back to its original state and more. We came here for the new Earth, for world peace, for the immortal golden age, for a new Eden. We came here for nothing less than to send a wave of light and love across the universe, signaling the birth of a new order of divine justice, peace, compassion, and love. You're not crazy. You are basically awake in an insane world. And I've said this over and over and over and over again, is that you have a front row seat to the biggest nut house in the universe. And if you don't believe that, just turn on the television for a few minutes and watch any news program or any other kind of popular entertainment. We are in an insane asylum, and the inmates are running the asylum. And there is a group of people that have come back to help with this. Okay. To the ones who've always felt different or out of place, the black sheep, the indigo child, the outcast, the star seed, the loner, you are the chosen ones. You couldn't fit in even if you tried. Embrace that, accept that, honor that. There are, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term indigo and crystal. And indigos, the theory has been indigos come in with a little bit more consciousness, a little bit more awareness, a little bit more understanding. And indigos and crystals are of kind of different ages. Now, at first, I think we were taught indigos are children. That was many, many years ago. Indigos have been around for a while. I did a speaking engagement a few years ago in California and came across a married indigo couple that were in their mid-70s. So indigos have been coming in for a while. And then now that's kind of morphed slightly into what's called crystals, crystal children. And they've been probably coming in for the past 10 years or so. I personally am an indigo. I know that to be fact. I would imagine that most of you on this call are indigos and haven't recognized it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be attracted to this work. Indigos and crystals have more knowledge and wisdom than the average bear. They see the world differently. They can see how the dots connect. They can see at multiple dimensions or multiple levels simultaneously. And as such, these people have come back to help change the world at this time. And the indigos are a little older. The crystals are a little newer. I look at all three of my grandchildren, and I can see crystal all over every one of them. And that's not uncommon. Typically, indigos and crystals are born into similar families. Like to really be able to handle a crystal, it almost takes an indigo and their wisdom and knowledge. And when I say handle, I mean bring them up right. So I'm going to read the description of indigos, keeping in mind crystals are slightly different, a little bit more advanced in some areas. So these are the 10 characteristics that they mention about indigos. A feeling of royalty. They seem to know without being told that they are spiritual beings, and they tend to carry themselves with a certain sense of dignity and certainty about who they are. Number 2, they know that they deserve to be here and are surprised when they find that older people don't necessarily feel that way. They simply do not understand the ideas of low self-esteem, guilt, or a sense of inferiority or subservience. It is as if they simply are not affected or afflicted with victim consciousness at all, at least if they are appreciated and allowed to develop in their own way. Now, that one is very important. If they are appreciated and allowed to develop in their own way. There has been a concentrated effort in this world to identify and attack, assault, and aggress against indigo children, now mostly indigo adults, that takes their self-esteem offline. And I'm going to get into here a little bit what that is and how that's been impacting them. But it's important. These are the underlying characteristics of these spiritual beings, of these highly spiritual beings. It does not mean that they are manifesting them 100%. Most indigos that find me, and my work is about working with indigos and crystals. Most indigos that come into my practice have very low self-esteem, have basically had the snot beat out of them for many, many, many years, and have taken up one beating after another, physically, mentally, emotionally, and mostly spiritually. Okay. They do not need to be told who they are, or educated, or trained to have a feeling of self-respect. Sometimes they give startling and disconcerting accounts of their own nature. In other words, they kind of know how they got here. There's numerous papers that have been written about children under the age of 5 that can recall entire past lives, what they did, where they lived, who they lived with, and so forth. It's startling to read some of those papers, those accounts. Number 4, they do have a problem with any form of authority imposed upon them. It is not that they are disrespectful or fundamentally rebellious. It is just that they do not understand authority that is exerted without explanation and without their consents being requested. Number 5, there are things they simply will not do. They will not wait in lines, for example. They will not waste time just for the sake of obeying a rule to keep them in order. Number 6, generally they are irritated by imposed order and rules of behavior or organization that do not encourage or allow them to use their own creativity to deal with the situation. Number 7, they are extremely creative socially. They find spontaneous and positive ways of interacting with each other, and they can see through ordinary ways of doing things, both at home and at school. They tend to be disinclined to obey the rules when they see ways of improving upon them. This makes them seem to be nonconformists and rebellious, but their basic motive is to make things work more smoothly and good for all. Number 8, they prefer to be with other indigos or other people on their level of consciousness and can appear unfriendly and even antisocial when others of their kind are not around. They can become morose and inward and quite sensitive to being misunderstood. This can cause real problems at school, where they frequently are misperceived as learning disabled or hyperactive. These misdiagnoses are quite dangerous. So indigos and crystals have been, that's when I say they've been attacked, assaulted, and aggressed against since they walked in this planet. That's one of the methods of doing it, is through the modern medical system. Now, I'm not saying medicine in general. I'm saying psychiatric medicine in particular with the psychotropic drugs. We are not suffering from a Prozac deficiency. These children are not suffering from a Zoloft deficiency. And those drugs don't fix anything. Now, they can be used as a Band-Aid to get them over an issue or what have you. But the problem is, once people go on these drugs, they typically stay on them for a very long time or even forever. Okay, so let me get off my soapbox. 9, it is impossible to make them behave by guilt tripping them or threatening them with disapproval. They know who they are in a way that lower dimensional beings can hardly conceive of, and cannot be made to feel that they are inferior beings. When threatened, they are they, in fact, can become quite violent. These children who have, over the last decade, or have been involved in acts of violence against teachers, parents, or peers have in every case been indigo children. Well, that's because the education system is not a natural learning environment. It was an environment that was put together in order to create obedient factory workers just smart enough to do the jobs at hand. But education is not about teaching you to be creative, teaching you to be independent, teaching you to be on your own. Otherwise, they teach things in school like how to fill out a tax form or how to handle your checkbook and all that kind of stuff. It's more about teaching you to be obedient workers. And indigos and crystals, that doesn't go well with them. And 10, they are not shy. They know what they need and generally have no difficulty in making you aware of it. Now, one of the things, and that's what I want to talk about here, is how these kids and now adults have been and continue to be attacked. It's like putting a round peg into a square hole. Rather than being nurtured and loved and pointed in the right direction for them to discover what it is they want to be when they grow up, they're told things. They're shoved into categories. They're labeled. They're drugged. They are labeled with things like learning disabilities, dyslexia, dyscalculia, all those kinds of things. ADHD is a learning disability. The schools actually get money for every child that has the label and the diagnosis. The school gets extra money in order to support them in their environment. So you always got to follow the money in this world. And anybody that's making money is an ulterior motive. It's always not your best interest at heart. So just be aware of that as well. But some of the ways that these indigos and crystals are currently being taken out of the equation is by being placed, or I have found one soul, this is not common, but I have found one soul who was rerouted, and his soul was put into a family that was actually dysfunctional. Or causing dysfunction within the family that the indigo or the crystal has chosen to be born into. Marriage difficulty, financial difficulty, poverty, struggle, all that kind of stuff. All that goes to create an environment for less than optimal results for an indigo or a crystal. And so dysfunctional families. And it's not uncommon for a person's parents to be attacked as well and to make them dysfunctional. And then that takes the indigo off their mission and gets them to pay attention to their family. Okay. And I just want to share a piece here around that. I think this is pretty amazing. And this is basically so many children have saved their parents' lives that they don't even realize it. And that's true. That's true. And that causes a lot of problems for an indigo when they got to step in and be the parent, or they got to step in and calm the fears of a mother or a father that's going off the deep end. And they skip developmental steps in their way of being in this world. A prison, an artificial prison, gets built in their mind about what's possible, what they're worth, what their value in this world is. All those 10 characteristics get destroyed. They just get dismantled when that happens to a child. The other thing is that they're born into a family of poverty and struggle. And then a big one, and this one is always a confirmation to me, is a Bardo command. And a Bardo command is an if-then statement. If then, that is a computer term. When you are writing code, you type in the statement if then. If this happens, then do this. And with a Bardo command in an energy field, and it's called that because it's placed in the field of the individual during the Bardo period of gestation. And it's an if then, it's a booby trap. And it's a convenient way for the powers that be, for evil that exists in this world, to take these kids out without having to pay too much attention to them. So it's if then. If they try to wake up, make them sick. If they try to remember who they are, bring a disease into their life. If then, it's a booby trap. But when I find Bardo commands in the field of anybody, it clues me in that they're indigos and crystals. Okay. And then another one that is a big thing that tends to really throw indigos and crystals off is religious dogma. A lot of times their families are steeped in religiosity, for lack of a better term. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying religion's a bad thing. Religion has its place. It can teach a lot of good virtues and so forth. But religion taken, just like anything taken to an extreme, can destroy an energy field, can destroy a person's psyche, can really mess people up. And that's what a lot of indigos and crystals have experienced is religiosity. I can't even say the word. In my personal case, I was born into a family of Southern Baptists, and we were at church. I kid you not, we were at church every time the doors were open. Every time the doors were unlocked, there was an event going on, we were there. Sunday morning Sunday school, Sunday morning service, Sunday night service, Wednesday night service. That's intense. That's intense. And it can induce something into the field that I have labeled as religious trauma. And not that the teachings, of Jesus are bad, they're not. But it's the trauma and the drama that goes along with it, like the teaching of original sin, or the teaching of you have to have somebody to save you. So you have to have a savior come along and pluck you out of the hell and damnation. A child going through that doesn't have the wherewithal of an adult to say, yeah, I believe that, or no, I don't believe that, or that doesn't sound right to me, or something like that. You swallow it whole, because a child is very narcissistic. The world revolves around them, and therefore they begin to think that all the hell and damnation that they hear about is also part of them, or what they're contributing to it in some way, or they don't deserve something. So again, that takes away those 10 features or those 10 functions of the indigo. It shuts that down in a really, really serious way. All religions have some kind of trauma to them in some form or fashion. And again, don't get me wrong, all religions, I believe, lead to the same mountaintop. I had a mentor who taught me that years ago. He was a minister, magnificent man. And we spent a lot of time having these kinds of discussions. And because at that time I was debating, do I go back to the Baptist church? Do I go to some other form and fashion, or another type of church or something like that? And he basically taught me they all lead the same place. Ultimately, that's what happens. And I believe that to be true. I believe that to be true. And you don't need religion to get there either. But that's your choice. And I respect that. What we're going to do tonight is clear the trauma side of it. Very different. Very different. You're an adult. Think as an adult. Act as an adult. Comprehend as an adult. So we're going to get right into religious trauma.